In one of the most breathtaking moments in South African political history, Kate Mantashe, the dominant and veteran ANC bruiser, was dragged from Parliament today in front of shocked MPs and a country watching in amazement. Tears, screams, and complete chaos dominated the chamber as parliamentary officials stepped in to take him out after a shock ruling stunned even veteran commentators. For years, Mantashe had been seen as among the most untouchable characters in the ANC. A man whose reach extended through provincial and national hierarchies, whose word usually stilled domestic critics, and whose image as a master strategist garnered respect and deference, as well as fear. His abrupt public humiliation has now sent waves that extend well beyond the parliament walls. This was not a typical session. It was a watershed, one that political analysts believe can set off the ANC's most fraught chapter since the advent of democracy. Sources within Parliament indicate that Mantashe was visibly shaken when the Speaker read out the historic ruling, his instant eviction due to active investigations, increasing pressure from opposition parties, and new allegations pertaining to state capture, dubious foreign transactions, and secret assets in offshore accounts. The Speaker's words, uttered with deliberate composure, were followed by clear gasps. Opposition benches exploded in cheers while ANC members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, caught between personal loyalty toward their colleague and awareness of the seriousness of the moment. As the ruling reverberated in the chamber, Mantashe, once famous for his iron-like calm, and for a capacity to charm even the most ferocious debates into submission, stood immobile before collapsing in full view of the nation. His shoulders were shaking, his hands were trembling, and his lips were quivering as he struggled to find balance. For a man whose image had been constructed for years on defiance and control, the tears spoke otherwise. Passion flowed from the ANC veteran who had for years been a presence in the corridors of power. His voice trembled as he tried to protest the ruling, but the Speaker was adamant and quickly overruled him. "This is political theatre and not justice," Mantashe bellowed through sobs, his voice ringing out above a chamber already filled with din. The outburst ignited an explosion. Members of the ANC rushed over to defend him, shouting above the Speaker and accusing opposition of conducting a witch hunt. Opposite them, DA and EFF MPs stood up, cheering and jeering, deeming the moment historic and one that marked the fall of one of the last untouchables. Security was finally summoned after the Speaker's instructions were disobeyed for almost 10 anxious minutes. Mantashe remained defiant, not budging, his supporters forming a circle around him to protect him. Parliament collapsed into complete chaos. "Accountability now and justice for the people" chants echoing around the chamber. Cameras filmed each moment of the drama, telecasting it live to millions of South Africans stuck in front of their TVs and devices. Outside of the chambers, the scene was equally dramatic. Protesting crowds that had waited in expectation of the decision erupted in cheers and jubilation. Some waved placards that featured the slogans "Clean House Now" and "No More Secrets, No More Scandals," while others danced and sang freedom songs with a new twist. Freedom songs calling for justice for corruption that had dented the credibility of the ANC. The mood, however, was not all celebratory. To each cheer, there were also whispers of sorrow among elderly supporters who still viewed Mant as a veteran of the struggle. The feeling of history being rewritten in the moment weighed heavy in the air. At the same time, ANC insiders are said to be in a state of panic, worrying that this public humiliation of Mant would trigger a domino effect that would further destabilize the party. Senior colleagues who stood by him in the past are now reportedly rethinking their allegiances, and others are racing to shield themselves from being drawn into the broadening investigations. With Mantashe no longer in Parliament and the Ethics Committee rushing its investigation, further resignations look inevitable. Insiders close to the investigation indicate no less than 3 other top ANC members may be referred within weeks with their careers at stake. On social media, the reaction was instant and incendiary. Video of Mantashe's meltdown went viral within minutes, attracting millions of views. The hashtag Mantashe removed trended on social media, with South Africans passionately discussing what the moment represented. Some posted messages of sympathy, describing him as a man broken by betrayal, while others celebrated the downfall of a figure they associated with decades of corruption and mismanagement. "I never thought I'd see Mantashe cry, but maybe now we'll finally see accountability in this country," one user posted. Another wrote, "This parliament scene looked like a movie. South Africa is waking up." The symbolism of Mantashe's ousting has not escaped notice. For decades, he was the quintessential embodiment of the ANC's old guards, leaders molded by the struggle for liberation, toughened by a generation of political horse trading and bent on clinging to power at any price. His defeat symbolizes not just individual failure, but also a larger accounting with a party trying to square its noble past with its symbolic present. The ANC, which was once the unopposed champion of South Africa's democratic values, is now facing internal corruption scandals, dwindling vote support, and increasing disillusionment among younger citizens. For Mantashe, the descent into disgracement is painfully human. When he was finally ushered out by the security men, cameras caught his final look at the parliamentary seat that he had once occupied with such domination. That look, hesitant, heavy with sorrow, seemed to represent the end of an epic. It reminded one that power, however deep, is never irreversible. The ripple effects of this day will be witnessed throughout South Africa's political arena for many years to come. Political observers already deem it one of the most dramatic changes since the post-apartheid times. Some think it might galvanize the opposition to push even harder for across-the-board accountability, while others worry that it might split the ANC so badly that the party might not be able to recover before the next general election. Within the ANC itself, the fight is intense. Reformers are calling for a new direction, while the loyalists say Mantashe was ousted to undermine the party from within. Regular citizens, however, are left with divided emotions. For some, the moment is a long-sought justice, tangible proof that no politician is above the law. For others, it provokes uneasy questions as to why accountability has been so long delayed, and if this is really the start of systemic reform or simply another flash of political stagecraft. As the dust settles, one thing is certain: that something that occurred today will be remembered in South African history books. It will be remembered not only as the decade Mantashe was recalled from Parliament, but also as the day the myth of untouchability in the ANC was busted. The photograph of Mantashe's Sabai meltdown will stay in the public eye. The stark reminder that beneath the politics, beneath the corruption, there are human beings whose decisions decide the fate of a nation. And as the ANC struggles to mop up the damage, the message of Parliament has been conveyed in unyielding strength. No one is above the law, not even Mantashe.